Diving right into part 2 of our Pride Month podcast with Kaelyn Query Caldwell and Glenn Means III of My Wedding Planner Kentucky and Lexington Event Co. by listing a few venues that are great for same-sex couples to work with. In Lexington, you have the Clear Story, Harper Hall, all of the Bayou Bluegrass catering venues, the Manchester Reserve and Manchester Music Hall, the Thoroughbred Center, Lyric Theater, the Hilton Downtown Lexington, the Campbell House, the Manchester Hotel's new event space, which is formerly known as La Brasa, the Signature Club, Main on Main. In Richmond, you have Chenault Vineyards and the Stone House at Silver Creek. In Danville area, you have historic Arcadia Farms. In Louisville, I'm not as familiar with, but did reach out to a few planners there to get some recommendations on venues they've had positive experiences with. And those include Hazelnut Farms, Udell, the Parklands at Floyd's Fork, and Whitehall. This is by no means a full list, but it does give you a great starting point in finding the perfect venue. On today's episode, we talk about the 3 hardest vendors for couples to book, Lexington area churches that will allow same-sex weddings, and more. You will also be able to watch the majority of the Wedding Whisperer podcast episodes going forward on YouTube with full video as well, if you're more of a video person. You're listening to The Wedding Whisperer with Sarah Burton of Simply Love Studio in Lexington, Kentucky.
One of the vendors I was thinking about that you want to be, I would say careful with, strategic with maybe, is your DJ. Because it is not going to be your traditional introducing Mr. and Mrs. for the first time. It may not be your father, daughter, mother, son dance. Have you worked with any DJs that have not been willing to work with that? Or are there any DJs that you wish would have done things differently on a wedding day?
I think the 3 vendor categories that we find more often than not that have a vendor who is not willing to work with a same-sex couple are venues, cake makers, and DJs. Yeah. Those are the 3 that I find the most. I'll be honest, I'll say 50% of the florists around are gay. Fabulous florists, and they're gay. But for myself personally, and Glenn may have different set list of vendors, but those 3 categories are the 3 that I find the most that are not and adamantly against same-sex couples in Kentucky. In Michigan, it was caterers, more caterers than anything else that didn't want to work with us, which, again, is just weird. But now on the flip side of that, we've had some DJs aggressively that are like, absolutely not, do not call me for these kinds of events again. And I won't say their names, but you can look at their social media profiles and figure it out pretty quickly, which is very helpful, right? Very helpful. And we've had some that say that they are open to it. One DJ in particular says that they're open to it, but then makes a lot of comments that are not inclusive or friendly or completely contradict being open and inclusive, right? It's like, you can't say you're open and inclusive here, and then over here you're making comments about transgender people or gay people or whatever. And it's like, these 2 things don't go together. We had another DJ separate from that one that, and I don't think this was an inclusivity issue. I think it was just a not understanding issue. And also, to Glenn's earlier point, I think they had not done a same-sex wedding before, but they could not wrap their brains around the fact that there was not a bride and a groom. They could not do it. So I ended up, luckily, they were at the rehearsal dinner as well. We got to see it at the rehearsal dinner. And so I ended up writing a script for them for the reception and the ceremony. I don't think talked during the ceremony, but for the reception, I wrote the script. I mean, every single word, and was like, here you go, Bill, read this word for word. Do not divert. So it ended up being okay. But he just, on our calls with the client, which is like just so, it makes you want to die. He was very apologetic, but he just couldn't wrap his brain around it.
I think we'd be remiss not to mention vendors that may be a struggle sometimes for LGBTQ plus individuals are churches. When we're looking at ceremony sites, and this goes into family dynamics too, families pushing, we want you to do it in mom and dad's church where we grew up and all these different things, but understanding that, well, it's clear that this church potentially is not supportive of the marriage, and they may have it, but they're not supportive of it, or you have churches that will be like, absolutely, full stop, no, we're not doing an LGBTQ plus wedding. And this also kind of goes into a bigger conversation about LGBTQ plus individuals are more than LGBTQ. Like, take my relationship, for example, my marriage, Terrell being Black and gay. There's a different set of expectations, especially within the Black religious community, and how they approach different things. Churches all over approach things different. Religions approach different things. Having and Kaelyn, I know we've experienced this where there's two different people that are two different religions.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have those conversations? So it's recognizing that LGBTQ people are more than LGBTQ plus. I have a friend who's LGBTQ plus, but also Jewish. You have to kind of navigate these different conversations with people, especially when it comes to marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and these religious institutions, and figuring out and knowing ahead of time what you're walking into, because that could be a hard conversation.
It's really helpful. Like St. Paul on Short Street has a huge sign out front. Rainbow flag, all are welcome. My son goes to Good Shepherd on Main Street, and they're saying, and the preacher, the minister, the pastor makes a very clear statement on the first day at parent orientation: love is all, and that is what we teach here. And if that's not what you believe, the door is in the back. I think it's Second Presbyterian on Main Street as well. Also very friendly. There are churches that are friendly, if that's what you're looking for, and they make a very clear statement, right? Which is great. It's helpful, right? The big ass sign out front is certainly a great way to be like, hey, we are here. We are friendly, which is wonderful. And that's what you want, right? On your wedding day, you want to feel loved and supported and included. And that's all we want, is for them to feel that way.
Talking about a couple of the vendors you mentioned, cakes here in Lexington. Kaelyn, who did your cake?
Locally here, it was Tinker's. Cameron Tinker's fabulous. And, I go back and forth with personal events between Martine and Tinker's and Martine and Tinker's and Martine and Tinker's. But Cameron did it, and it was wonderful. It had this beautiful navy icing with this like fern looking pattern, trying to recreate what we had in Michigan.
Sweets by Cindy will also do same-sex weddings. Are there any more that you can think of off the top of your head that you typically recommend for cake?
Those are the two.
For DJ, I know Kentucky Pro does a fair amount. Riptide. Yeah. I'm not sure if Hi-Fi has done any or not. I feel like he would. He literally is one of the nicest humans and loves everybody and just wants to see people dance. Are there any other ones that you typically recommend?
For same-sex weddings, that's the list that we use. And we start there. And if a client doesn't connect with them, or it's not the right budget, or they're not available, we kind of have another list that we pull from. But, for vendors, first and foremost, it's, are they willing to do a same-sex wedding, right? And then we look at what they offer, price, and every vendor category, not just DJs. We want our clients to talk with them first, just to make sure it's a good fit. Because if it's not a good personality fit, I don't care if the price is right or if their website looks great. It's just not a fit. We say the same thing to our clients. I make the same joke to every single client. Do you think you could go have a coffee, lunch, drink with me? And Glenn's going to laugh because he's heard me say this literally thousands of times. And if you don't think that my jokes are funny, which they are, and you don't think you could go like hang out with me for an hour, do not hire me, because we're going to spend a lot of time together. Same thing with your DJ, especially your photographer. Hair and makeup, maybe no, because like you're gonna be with them for an hour, so that's not as much of a connection issue, but it's important. So that's normally our list.
And talking about hair and makeup, do you recommend each of them to have their own artist on the day of?
Like for the couple, Yes, we normally send, now we could hire the same company, but we would normally send a set of hair and makeup artists to one and a set of hair and makeup artists to the other, and then maybe add some artists to each, depending on how many people they have with them. I'll tell you, we've had some weddings where we have beautiful hair with the men, and they want their hair done. They want like a loose curl, or they want some piece of it pinned or a flower put in there. We've had some that want makeup, and I love that. Typically, it prolongs the day significantly trying to do one hotel room or wherever they are first and then going to the other. So we try to have two separate sets of folks.
I am seeing more men getting hair touch-ups and maybe getting some concealer and stuff on the morning of the wedding. Makes the pictures even better.
Right.
I did want to mention, I do get this question a lot. Where can women try on suits in Lexington? You know, now carries women's suits in black, or tuxes, I should say. Sorry, tuxedos in black. Kaelyn, I know Molly had a custom suit for your wedding. Do you know anything about how she did that or where it came from?
Rye Custom Clothing. Edwin Rye is fabulous. He has worked all around the world with different designers and creators and fabric companies and all of that. And he actually works with us occasionally as well. He's just a wonderful human. But he did her suit. There's like a whole process, and I'm going to get all the terminology wrong, but you know, you come and it's actually a little bit more involved than like a dress shopping day. I was kind of a little jealous. I mean, I got my dress at Twirl. Twirl was fabulous, but the photos from the suit situation were just so much more intense. So there are thousands, similar to a wedding dress, thousands of styles you can choose from, different cuts, different cuffs, different ways that the jacket closes, different numbers of buttons, the lapel is different shaped, and then same thing with the pants. You go through that first, then you're looking at fabrics, and there's two different fabrics. You've got your interior fabric or liner, I guess maybe is what it's called. Glenn, you probably know. You should be telling this, not me. A liner, maybe, I don't know. And then the exterior fabric. And so two different materials. So she did like a deep navy, really thick, nice quality fabric on the outside, and then our wedding colors were like a deep navy and magenta. The color of the year, I'm obsessed with the Pantone color of the year. In 2023, the Pantone color of the year was Viva Magenta. Now, if you know me, you know I am not a pink girl. Okay, I'm not a pink girly, but it kind of leans a little red, and I do love red, so I was like, we're gonna go for it. I don't regret it. But the interior liner of this suit was this navy and Viva Magenta, like paisley design, and it is beautiful. And then you pick the stitching. So she had a magenta stitching on the inside and then a dark navy stitching on the outside. And then she had our wedding date put on the inside of the jacket and with our names or maybe our initials, but it's a whole process. And then he goes to Italy and like gets the fabric or wherever. Maybe it's not Italy. It depends on what fabric you pick, but and then it's customized, and then you come in and you try it on, and there's all these alterations, and it's awesome. And there's a couple places locally that can do that. He can obviously do it. And he's in Central Kentucky. He's in the Midway area, but he'll come wherever. He just did a suit in Virginia. So if you're in Virginia, he can come see you, or anywhere. I know Albert Couture does that as well. Glenn, do you know of other places that do custom suits?
I was actually going to suggest Albert. I'm sure if you follow Albert is huge. It has been so fascinating to follow Albert's journey from opening up a storefront here in Lexington to seeing clients all over the country, having a place in New York City. It's just so great to see someone start so small and just work from the ground up and do so. My suggestion would have been Albert Couture because he does wonderful work.
Glenn, what did you and your husband wear for your wedding day?
We did suits, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say we both do drag too here in Lexington. We always said when we do a anniversary, another celebration, that it'll be a drag wedding.
I can't wait.
And it will be so intense with so many designed elements, and we will invite so many people. It's funny to me that like as Glenn and Terrell, we were like small, intimate. But then if it's drag, we're like everybody and their mom can come, So.
Yeah, I love it. To the suit comment, I think if it's feasible, having a custom suit done is a little bit more expensive than renting a suit. But I think people would be surprised. I think there's this notion that it's going to be the same price as a wedding dress. And look, there are all ranges and scales on the spectrum. You can find a wedding dress that's less than $1,000. You can find a wedding dress that's $10,000, right? And everything in between. It's the same thing with suits. I was very surprised at the cost. It was significantly lower than I expected when she told me the total. There are probably a lot of frills and fancy things that could have been added, sure, that would have made it more expensive, but it was affordable to us, right? And everyone's level of affordability is different. So I hate when people use the word affordable, and then I just did it. We were very surprised at the cost. So I think it's something that should be explored. What I tell clients is, if you, no matter same sex or not, if you don't have a great suit, your wedding is the time that you should explore a custom suit, right? Because it's going to fit you literally perfectly. So if it's feasible, both time-wise, because it takes a little extra planning, and cost-wise, I always tell people to at least explore the option because it's worth it.
If someone is listening to the podcast and maybe they have been engaged for a while, but they haven't actually done anything toward the planning part of it, what are kind of the first steps if maybe they wanted to work with both of you, Kaelyn?
We're pretty transparent about our pricing. It's listed on the website. We don't have packages, quote unquote, but we have kind of levels of service. So for us, there are 3 levels. It is either what we call supplemental support, which is consulting. So it's $1,000 flat fee that gets you 4 planning sessions and a bunch of templates. And so really that's for someone who wants to DIY. Maybe they have a low budget. Maybe they're eloping. Or maybe they're trying to turn around quickly and they just don't need or want a planner, but they can use those sessions however they want. We do it virtually, so they can be anywhere in the world, and we'll do a little work for them on the back end, right? It's not like we tune in and we've got 1 hour and that's it, but like we'll help them find venues if that's how they want to use the time. We will review contracts for them if that's how they want us to use the time. It's up to them. And maybe they already have some of those things figured out, but they need help elsewhere. So it's totally up to them. Then we have what we call coordination. I think we call it like coordination and consultation. So it's somebody who they want to kind of do some of the work themselves, but they need a little extra help. And then they need somebody on site to bring it all together. So in that regard, we'll do those things. We do provide some vendor referrals. We'll go through their contracts, and then we build out their timelines, their floor plans, all that. And then we're on site from load in to load out. And then we have our full service. So that person is someone who wants us to pull all of the quotes, negotiate the rates. Like, we're really doing the work. They get to make all of the decisions. We're still not going to make any decisions on their behalf, but we're doing the legwork. And then they get to point and choose and pick, and I want more of this and less of that, and I don't like that. Let's find another one here. A lot of our out-of-town clients go for this option. If we have clients that, just have really busy jobs, they just don't have time. Or if they don't have parents involved helping do it, or they have a really big wedding. And we have some others in between, but those are kind of the options there. And then pricing for coordination and full service varies based on your event details. We have some ranges, like a scale on the website, but we do require a discovery call. We won't give anyone a quote without it, because there's just no way for me to know what you need until we talk about it. And sometimes clients don't even know what they need until we start asking questions, and they're like, oh my gosh, didn't even think about that. So we want to know, like, do you have a venue that requires full setup and then a full flip, and then we have to break it all down and take it out that night? Because if that's the case, I need a lot more staff on site than if we're at apiary and you have 30 people and, no vendors, right? These are 2 totally different events. So also apiary is LGBTQ friendly. We missed that one earlier on the venues. But so we want to talk about that, right? So we do a discovery call. It's normally 45 minutes virtually or by phone. We chat through all the details, high level of their event. And then once we're done with that, we go through kind of who we are, how we work. We talk about our process, how we meet with clients, our project management portal that they have access to, our history, our experience, and we let them ask any question that they have. And then we send them the proposal afterwards. We get the occasional inquiry of like, I would love to book an event. Can you send pricing? So we send them to the website and it's like, can you send me specific pricing? And I'm like, nope, not until I talk to you. And look, early in my career, I used to do that. When I first started, I charged $500. I didn't care where you were going. I didn't care how much you had going on, how many people, and half the time I ended up paying clients to be at their event. I'm driving back and forth 75 times to Danville, and you've got string lights that I didn't know about, and I don't have a ladder, and whatever. And then I learned quickly, like, this isn't working. So we want to know what you're doing first. And I also want to get to know somebody. It's an interview for the client, but selfishly, it's also an interview for us. And there are some clients we have interviewed and have said, this is not a fit for you or for me. It's not conducive for you. It's not a good experience for you. It's not a good experience for us.
I think being a good fit for a couple and a vendor, regardless of the vendor, is super important. And that's something that we talk about on every podcast. I think as you have been in the industry longer, we learn when we're, much quicker if we're a good fit or not. Looking at the future and say the next 5 to 10 years, is there anything that you would like to see change in the wedding industry, evolve or grow for either same-sex weddings or heterosexual weddings?
I think for me, this is going to be more of a business owner comment than a wedding planner comment. We don't have a lot of structure in our industry. You're not required to have any licensing. Technically you are required in the state of Kentucky to have a business license, but that's a big asterisk because who's checking for that? Everybody with a computer is a planner. Everybody with a phone is a photographer or a videographer or a content creator. And I think our industry gets a bad reputation because there are these cheap vendors online offering services that they can't actually deliver on. We see it all the time on social media, on the news. We hear about it from clients. We have a client right now who their planner took their money and then never called them back again. And so they ended up coming to us saying, we're basically starting from scratch, and now we're out $6,000. That was the deposit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking. We had a client last year call us because their planner signed a contract with them, and then she wasn't doing it full time, and she got overwhelmed with her full-time job. And then 4 months before their wedding said, I can't do it anymore. And so they had to basically start from scratch. And, we see that on the planning side, but there's venues that, are taking people's money, and then they've already filed bankruptcy and they're still taking people's money. So, it's hard because all it takes is one bad apple to make the whole tree rotten. And there's a lot of really good vendors in this community that really work hard and follow the rules. We're licensed, we're insured, we have insurance, we check things legally. We have attorneys review things. We do continuing education. Some of us have degrees in these things. And it's not to say that you can't be good at doing whatever it is without a degree or an attorney or whatever. But I just wish that there was a little bit more structure, mostly because I don't want clients to, or people out there in the world to be taken advantage of. It's just so easy to scam people anymore. So I would love to see a little bit more structure in our industry just so that it's fair to the clients. And it's not even a pricing thing. We're not the most expensive. We're not the cheapest. And I'm fine with that. We're not going to be a good fit for everybody. And it could be because of price. It could be because they don't like me, and whatever, or something in between. And that's fine. But outside of that, outside of us, I don't want someone to hire any vendor from any category and be scammed, or the person has really great design skills and they've designed this really great website that makes it look like they're really good at what they're doing, and they've never videoed a wedding before, or they've never done a wedding cake before and their cake is falling over, but they've got really good photos, and we learn later that they're stock photos. What do you think, Glenn?
What I'd like to add to that is there's a reason we have safeguards in place. We're working with a vulnerable population, and this goes for any client, but specifically when we're working with vulnerable populations such as the LGBTQ plus community, it's good that we have safeguards in place. It's about protection. It's about safety, especially within a community when it's needed now more than ever. You need to be looking for that, in vendors, and making sure that those protections are in place. For me, 5 to 10 years from now, we mentioned this earlier, but an end to the bride and groom only default. Inclusive language, more LGBTQ plus representation in general when we see shoots, blogs, magazines, all the things. Because let's be real, LGBTQ plus people are running the show behind the scenes here. Kaelyn alluded to it earlier. 70% of our team is LGBTQ plus. We're not a trend. We're a vital part of this industry. We're always going to be a vital part of this industry. We've always been taken seriously. Our knowledge and expertise has always been taken seriously. So keep us going. Keep those queer businesses running that are doing the great work and have always been doing the great work.
Are there any specific magazines or blogs that you all like to refer your couples to that are inclusive?
There's a website called Inclusive Kentucky Weddings that has a list of vendors that is great. It's a mix of vendors who are LGBTQ owned and also a list of vendors who are allies. Franzetti Photography also has a list like this that she will share with anyone, client or not, and she shares it with vendors as well. So those are always great resources that we use, but also that clients use. I think the wedding publications have gotten a little bit more, like they're slowly kind of catching on. I know Brides has done more inclusive posting. It's always nice to see that slowly these publications are catching on. And it's smart, right? Because from a business standpoint, back to my business owner comment, it's an untapped, or not completely untapped, but a undertapped market. There are people out there wanting to give you their money. They just happen to be marrying someone who is either the same gender or some other letter. And Glenn says LGBTQ so fast, and he gets it every time. He says it every day.
It's in my vernacular. Like, I have to say it all the time. I know that there's a National Gay Wedding Association that people can go to. Equally Wed is another one. For queer women, Dancing with Her. Those are just ones that pop out to me. Also, if you go to the Human Rights Campaign website, they have a great portfolio of, when you just search for inclusive just vendors in general. I think there's also, when you go down through there, especially when they were going with wedding equality and all that, they have like a whole list of things too.
Any final remarks, thoughts, comments, suggestions, tips for couples?
I think for me, for the vendors out there listening, if you want to do more same-sex weddings, or you want to make sure that, especially if you're not an LGBTQ person, just be open about it. I mean, I am in the LGBTQ community and I still mess up the words and the terminology and the pronouns and all of that. I still sometimes have to take a minute and think about what I'm saying and look at something again and say, is this inclusive? The more you do it, the more you'll do it. Just being open and honest with someone about, I'm really sorry. Did I say that correctly, or did I mess that up? Or, I've asked clients straight up, like, how would you like me to refer to you? Or what would you like me to call you? Or what pronouns do you want me to use? They appreciate you asking. The DJ that we hired in Michigan really wanted to drive home to us that they were LGBTQ friendly. So on our final review call, which was done via Zoom because we were in Kentucky, they had a pride flag hanging behind them on the wall and a pride t-shirt on, and they didn't say anything about it, but it was just in the background. And of course we noticed it, but it was that subtle little, I want to make sure that I am an ally and that I want to make you comfortable. After that call, we both said, our reception's going to be great. This is going to be great, because we know they've said it, but now they've shown us. Just do your best. If you mess up the pronoun, if you say the wrong thing, or whatever, just apologize, ask questions, be curious, but just try, do your best. And for the clients out there, give people some grace. We're all trying, and even some of us in the community still F it up. So just give us a minute. Correct us.
Since Kaelyn broke it up nicely into vendors, allies of the community, educate yourself. Don't rely on your LGBTQ plus friends to do it for you. You have to do it, and it's more refreshing and rewarding when you do it and you actually learn it for yourself. And everybody's experience is unique to them. It's better that you do the research yourself anyway. If you have to ask somebody, find a safe friend to ask it to, because there's plenty of us out here that will love to talk to you more about it. I think we touched on the inclusive language piece, but making sure it's all across all platforms. Diversify your portfolio if you haven't already, but do it outside of not just Pride Month. You need to do it all year round, not just during Pride Month. Speak up when you hear something that's exclusionary. I think Kaelyn hit on this a lot, but I think it's just important to mention, make sure your team and your subcontractors are on the same page.
Yep.
At all
Team
times.
members. There are team members we have parted ways with because in working with them, we discovered that we do not align. And I'm not saying we have to vote for the same person, but I am saying if you voted for Donald Trump, you probably aren't a good fit for our company to work with us. I mean, 75% of our team identifies as LGBTQ. So, sorry, not to get political there, but I think making sure that if you are not an LGBTQ person, but you are an ally and you want to book those weddings, making sure that you have some vendors in your Rolodex that are LGBTQ owned. Equally, I think we should all have in our Rolodex vendors who are BIPOC owned, because it just makes your selection more robust. It makes your clients feel more comfortable, and it gives you more options. There's some really cool stuff happening out there. And allies are great. Don't get me wrong. We got to have them too. To Glenn's point about your team and because I kind of consider vendors part of our team. They're an extension of our team, especially if we recommend them. So that was a good point, Glenn.
The last piece that I'll mention that Kaelyn wrapped up with, just for like couples, like in general that are listening, and this is queer, straight, whoever, just remember that it's about you. I mean, this whole process is about you. Don't get lost in the schedule and the pressure of everything. I think a lot of times we see couples not being present, and that is the most important part. You have to be present in this process. Everything could potentially fall apart, so just be present. I think something that me and my husband was great is, like, I just remember us looking at each other often. Like, we were always looking at each other and laughing and crying and doing all the things. Those are the moments you're going to remember. For us, it was the beginning of something beautiful, and so this opportunity is something that is an opportunity for you to look back on and say, wow, we really made that our own. Like, we made this journey our own. And so being present is very important. And I think for Kaelyn and I, we just want every client to experience that.
Thank you so much to Kaelyn and Glenn for joining me on this podcast. I am going to have show notes up on the Wedding Whisperer podcast website with a list of venues and a list of churches that we know are same-sex friendly, as well as the websites that Glenn mentioned in the podcast. If you are a vendor and would like to have your name added to the list, please shoot me a message and I will absolutely do that. For more information about Simply Love Studio or to schedule your wedding consultation, go to simplylovestudio.com.